What is the one rule you swore you would never break? For most people, it's something personal, a line they draw for themselves. In my line of work, as an American trucker, the rule isn't personal. It's a matter of survival. It's the golden rule. The very first thing the old-timers drill into your head before you even get behind the wheel of a big rig. You never, ever stop for a stranger in the middle of nowhere. You just don't do it. You hear the stories on the CB radio, the cautionary tailies at truck stops, stories that make the hair on your arms stand up. You learn to trust that rule more than you trust your own eyes sometimes. But on one particular night, under a cold, starless sky in the middle of the Nevada desert, I broke that rule. The road was a lonely ribbon of asphalt, just me and the steady hum of my engine eating up the miles. It was late, that kind of deep, quiet night where you feel like you're the only person left on the planet. And then I saw it. A figure, small and motionless on the shoulder of the highway. Every instinct, every warning I had ever received, screamed at me to keep going, to keep my foot pressed firmly on the gas. This is how the bad stories start, I told myself. Have you ever been in a situation like that, where your gut tells you to do the exact opposite of what your brain is screaming? I slowed down, my headlights cutting through the darkness and falling on her. It was a woman, alone, clutching a small bag. She wasn't trying to flag me down aggressively. She just stood there, looking defeated, bathed in the glow of my high beams. My mind was a battlefield, a trap, or someone in genuine, life-threatening trouble. I made a choice in that split second, a choice that went against years of training and caution. I pulled my rig over to the side of the road, the hiss of the air brakes sounding unnaturally loud in the dead of night. I didn't just stop. I unlocked the passenger door and let a complete stranger climb into my cab, into my world. The silence that followed was heavier than any load I've ever hauled. I could feel the tension, a mixture of her fear and my own uncertainty. We drove for miles without a single word exchanged. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was racing. Then her voice, quiet and shaky, cut through the silence. She told me she didn't have any money to pay me for the ride. I told her not to worry about it. And that's when it happened. She looked at me, her eyes holding a depth of desperation I had never seen before. And she told me that while she had no money, she could offer me something else in return. The way she said it, the weight behind those words, it froze me in my seat. Stay with me until the end. Because what she offered me in that moment had nothing to do with money, and everything to do with the side of humanity you only see when all hope seems lost. What you are about to discover now might just surprise you. This story isn't about the rule I broke. It's about what happened in the miles that followed, and the offer that still makes my blood run cold when I think about it. My mind went to 100 different places in a split second, all of them dark. I'm sitting there, my hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to figure out what to say, what to do. It's one of those moments that defines you, you know. A true moral crossroads out here on this lonely stretch of road. And you know, before I tell you what I did next, it really makes me think. It makes me wonder about all of you watching this right now. We all face these tests, maybe not in the cab of a truck in the desert, but in our own lives. That moment where you have to make a choice that says everything about who you are. If this feeling makes any sense to you at all, if you've ever been at a crossroads like that, I'd genuinely love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and just share your thoughts. You don't have to share details, but just knowing I'm not the only one who's faced these moments, it means a lot. Your participation here, your stories, that's what builds this community. It's what makes this channel more than just stories. It turns it into a shared experience. And if this story is resonating with you, a simple click on the like button goes a long way. It tells me that these kinds of raw, honest accounts from the road are something you want to see more of. It helps this story reach other people who might need to hear it too. And of course, if you want to keep riding along with me for more of these real-life dramas and inspiring moments from the highway, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hitting that subscribe button is the fuel that keeps this rig moving, allowing me to share more of the incredible, heartbreaking, and life-changing things you only see out here on the open road. I appreciate that more than you know. Now, let's get back to that cold cab in the Nevada desert. She had made her offer, and the silence was deafening. The ball was in my court. I looked over at her. This complete stranger whose entire fate, at least for that night, felt like it was resting on my next words. I looked over at her. This complete stranger whose entire fate, at least for that night, felt like it was resting on my next words. But to truly grasp the weight of that moment, the impossible decision hanging in the air of my cab, you need to understand the world I live in. You need to understand what this road does to a man. You see the big rigs rolling down the highway, and you probably think about freedom, about the open road, about being your own boss. And some of that is true. But there is a hidden truth to this life, a side you don't see in the movies. To understand why I broke the rule, you have to understand the stage on which this drama was set, and the state of my own soul leading up to that encounter. This cab, this small space, is more than just a truck. For weeks at a time, it is my entire universe. It's my office, my kitchen, and my bedroom, all rolling down the asphalt at 65 miles an hour. The only constant sound is the deep, steady hum of the diesel engine, a sound that becomes the soundtrack to your own thoughts. And you have a lot of them, too many of them. After the third or fourth day out here, the world outside the windshield starts to feel like a movie you're just watching. The real world, the one with family and friends and normal problems, it fades. Your only companion is the loneliness. At first, it's peaceful. It gives you time to think, to process. But after a while, that loneliness becomes a physical presence. It sits in the passenger seat, right where she was sitting. It's a heavy, quiet passenger that never leaves. You have entire conversations with yourself. You replay arguments from years ago. You think about the decisions you've made, the turns you took in life, and you wonder what might have been. It's a journey into your own mind, and sometimes that's a scary place to be. Your mindset has to be tough, but even the toughest steel gets worn down by time and isolation. You look at the photos taped to your dashboard, a smiling wife, a kid's school picture, and they start to feel like images from someone else's life. The distance isn't just in miles, it becomes emotional. And that's the danger. That profound loneliness, it chips away at the hard shell you build around yourself for protection. It makes you vulnerable. It makes you crave a real voice, a real human connection, with an intensity that someone surrounded by people every day could never understand. The impact of that isolation is a slow but powerful force of transformation, but it's not always a positive one. It can make you bitter and closed off, or it can make you desperate for a sign that you're still part of the human race. Now I'm to go even deeper on this subject, because on that particular night, I was feeling that isolation more than ever. I'd been on the road for 2 weeks straight, hauling freight through 3 different time zones. I'd spoken maybe a dozen words to another human being in the last 72 hours, and those were just to a cashier at a fuel stop. I was in a fragile state. The world felt gray and muted. So when I saw her on the side of the road, it wasn't just a potential threat. It was a sudden, shocking splash of color in a black and white world. It was a break in the endless, monotonous pattern of my existence. My decision to stop wasn't just about her. It was about me. It was about a deep, unspoken need to do something human, something that connected me back to the world I felt so detached from. It was a subconscious pushback against the crushing weight of the road. So when she sat there in my cab, after miles of silence, and made that desperate offer, it landed differently than it might have on another day. The trucker in me, the one who lived by the rules, was screaming danger. But the man in me, the lonely man who hadn't had a meaningful conversation in days, heard something else. I didn't just hear her words. I heard the story behind them. I heard the desperation, the fear, and the complete loss of hope. It was a revelation. It revealed the raw, unfiltered truth of her situation, and in doing so, it exposed the raw, lonely truth of my own. My decision wasn't going to be about logic or rules anymore. It was going to be about one human being looking at another and deciding what to do next. It was about her journey meeting mine at the most unlikely crossroads imaginable. If you're starting to see the deeper picture here, the story behind the story, just write "I see the journey" in the comments below. It lets me know we're on the same road together. The offer she made was shocking, but the reason behind it was where the real story began. The offer she made was shocking, but the reason behind it was where the real story began. As I said, I was feeling the weight of the road that night, a deep, pervasive solitude. The miles were blending together. Just another endless stretch of blacktop under a sea of stars. It was in that exact state of mind, somewhere deep in the Nevada high desert, that I first saw her. It wasn't dramatic at first. It was just a flicker, a distortion on the horizon where there should have been nothing but straight, empty road. My eyes are trained to spot anything unusual. A deer, debris on the highway, a state trooper hiding in the median. But this was different. As my rig ate up the distance, the flicker slowly solidified into a shape, a silhouette against the overwhelming darkness. My first thought was a breakdown, but that didn't make sense. There were no flashing hazard lights, no smoke, no sign of a vehicle anywhere on the shoulder for miles in either direction. There was just this solitary figure, standing perfectly still. My instincts, the ones honed by years of navigating these lonely highways, started screaming, "This is wrong. Everything about this picture is wrong." The voice in my head, the voice of every seasoned trucker I'd ever met, was shouting, "Accelerate. Frank, don't even think about it. Keep your foot on the floor and don't look back." That's the survival mindset. You don't ask questions you might not like the answers to. I could feel my foot hovering over the accelerator, ready to push down and leave this strange vision in my rearview mirror. But as my headlights finally reached her, painting her in a harsh, bright light, something stopped me. It wasn't a conscious decision at first, more like a reflex. She wasn't trying to wave me down or jump in front of the truck. She just stood there, holding a small bag, looking small and incredibly vulnerable against the vast, empty landscape. There was a posture of complete and utter defeat in the way she stood, her shoulders slumped, her head slightly bowed. It wasn't the stance of a predator waiting for a trap. It was the stance of someone who had given up. That single image cut through all the warnings, all the rules. It bypassed the logical part of my brain and hit me square in the heart. The human element of it was too powerful to ignore. The truth of that moment was undeniable. A person was in trouble. I found myself slowing down, the rumble of the Jake brake echoing across the desert floor. The decision was made before I even fully processed. I was going to stop. I was going to break the one rule I swore I never would. The full impact of that choice hadn't hit me. Yet, I was just acting on a powerful, gut-level feeling that to keep driving would be an act of cruelty I couldn't live with. Pulling that massive truck over to the shoulder, the sound of the tires crunching on the gravel felt like a point of no return. I was stepping off the map, entering uncharted territory. The silence that fell after I killed the engine was absolute, a profound quiet that made the whole situation feel even more surreal. For a long moment, I just sat there, looking at her in my side mirror, a dark shape in the dim glow of my running. Lights. Now I want to go even deeper into the psychology of this encounter, because what happened next was a masterclass in human dynamics, fear, and trust. The moments after I stopped were some of the most tense of my entire life. Opening that door wasn't just about letting a stranger in. It was about willingly inviting chaos into my carefully controlled world. This is where the journey truly began to reveal its hidden layers. The initial meeting was just the surface, a prelude to the revelations that were about to unfold inside the confines of my truck cab. The air was thick with unspoken questions. Who was she, and what secrets was she carrying in that small bag? I was about to find out, and the truth was more complicated and heartbreaking than anything I could have ever imagined. The reality behind the silhouette was about to come into focus, and it would change the entire course of my night, and in some ways, my perspective on life itself. The real drama wasn't her standing on the side of the road. It was what she brought with her when she climbed into that passenger seat. If you've ever felt that pull between your head and your heart, write "I get it" in the comments. It's a powerful conflict, and what I was about to hear would test that conflict to its absolute limit. And what I was about to hear would test that conflict to its absolute limit. I reached across the cab and pushed the door open. It swung outwards, with a soft groan cutting through the desert silence. She looked up, her face a mixture of shock and relief. She moved slowly, hesitantly, as if she couldn't quite believe this was real. As she climbed the steps into the cab, the interior light came on, and I got my first good look at her. She was younger than I thought, maybe late 20s, with eyes that looked like they had seen far too much. She clutched that small bag to her chest like a shield. She didn't say a word, just slid into the passenger seat and pulled the heavy door shut, sealing us inside together. The world outside disappeared. Now it was just the two of us, in this small bubble of dim light, surrounded by an ocean of darkness. I put the truck in gear and slowly pulled back onto the empty highway. Those first few miles were the longest of my life. The silence was so thick you could feel it. I could hear every breath she took, shallow and nervous. I could feel my own heart pounding against my ribs. My mind was a whirlwind, a battlefield of conflicting thoughts. Every rational fiber of my being was screaming that I had made a catastrophic mistake. My brain was running through a checklist of all the things that could go wrong, a highlight reel of every horror story I'd ever heard at a truck stop. Tales of drivers who were robbed, or worse, just because they had a moment of compassion. These aren't just stories. They are part of the trucker's mental framework for survival. You build walls to protect yourself, and I had just opened the main gate and invited a complete unknown inside dot. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles were white. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, at the empty road behind us, half expecting to see headlights following. Was this an ambush? Was she a decoy? The logical part of my brain, the part that had kept me safe for over 1 million miles on the road, was telling me to be suspicious, to be on guard, to ask the hard questions. Where did you come from? Where are you going? Who are you? But then I would glance over at her. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring straight ahead, out the windshield, but her eyes weren't really seeing the road. They were 1 million miles away. And in her profile, I didn't see a threat. I saw a profound sadness. I saw fear. Yes, but it wasn't the fear of someone about to do something wrong. It was the fear of someone who had already had something wrong done to them, and that's where the heart took over. My heart was telling a different story. It was asking a different set of questions. What if that was my sister? What if that was my daughter? all grown up and in some kind of terrible trouble, stranded on the side of a dark road. Could I live with myself if I was the one who drove by, who saw her and did nothing? The thought sent a chill down my spine. That had nothing to do with the cold night air. It was a moment of intense moral calculation. The risk to my own safety versus the potential to save someone else from an unknown horror. It's a decision you hope you never have to make. The horn of another truck blaring as it passed me by, its lights momentarily flooding my cab, jolted me back to the present. The driver was probably wondering what the hell I was doing, pulling over and then driving so slowly. He didn't know. The war that was being waged inside my cab, inside my own head. I had to make a choice, right then and there. Trust my gut or trust the rules. Now I want to go even deeper into this, because this internal battle is something we all face. This is the core of so many of our life's biggest decisions. It's the constant struggle between our calculated, logical mind and our empathetic, emotional heart. The journey I was on with this stranger was forcing a personal transformation, making me reevaluate the very foundations of my mindset. The truth I was about to uncover wasn't just about her story. It was a revelation about my own character and the kind of man I wanted to be. The bastidors of this encounter, the internal monologue, was where the real story was unfolding. The impact of this decision would ripple far beyond this one night on this one road. I took a breath, broke the silence, and asked her a simple question. Her answer would be the key that unlocked the entire mystery. If you have ever been torn between your head and your heart like that, just type the dilemma in the comments. It shows me you understand the weight of a moment like this. Her answer was about to change everything. Her answer was about to change everything. I turned to her, keeping my voice as calm and steady as I could. I just said, "Are you okay, Mom?" It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't an interrogation. It was just a simple human question. For a moment, she didn't respond. She just stared out at the road. And then she gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. No, she wasn't okay. That one small gesture was more powerful than any words she could have said. It was an admission of vulnerability, a silent plea. It confirmed what my heart had been telling me all along. This wasn't a trick. This was a crisis. We drove on in silence for a few more minutes, but the quality of the silence had changed. The tension of the unknown had been replaced by the weight of a known problem, even if I didn't know the details yet. Then her voice came again, this time a little stronger, a little clearer. "I saw your headlights coming from miles," she said. "I prayed you would stop. Every other truck, every car, they just sped up when they saw me." The thought of her standing out there, watching car after car pass her by, each one a fresh wave of despair, it solidified my decision. I knew in that instant that I had done the right thing. The risk didn't matter anymore. The rules didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was the person sitting next to me. That's when she finally told me where she was trying to go. She didn't have a grand destination in mind. She just whispered a single word. East, just east. Away from whatever she was running from. "As far as you're going?" she added, her voice cracking. That was the moment I fully committed. This wasn't just a short ride to the next town. This was a rescue. Her journey was now my journey. We drove on, and I offered her a bottle of water from my cooler. Her hands were shaking as she took it. It was after she took a few sips, after a few more miles of the steady rumble of the engine, that the conversation took the turn that I mentioned. At the beginning, the turn that put me on the spot and tested every ounce of my character. She turned to face me, her eyes meeting mine for the first time. "Sir," she said, her voice now barely a whisper, "I have to be honest with you. I don't have any money." I don't have anything to give you for gas or for your trouble. I immediately told her not to worry about it, that I wasn't expecting anything. I just wanted to get her somewhere safe. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. She looked down at her hands, at the small bag in her lap, and then she looked back at me. There was a look of shame, of deep desperation in her eyes that I will never forget as long as I live. And that's when she said the words that hit me like a physical blow. But I can offer you something else. Now on to go even deeper into this, because the implications of that offer, the truth hidden behind it, is the very heart of this entire story. This is where the narrative shifts from a story about a trucker giving a stranger a ride to a profound exploration of human dignity, desperation, and the decisions we make when we feel we have nothing left to lose. The mindset of someone pushed to that absolute edge is a place most of us will thankfully never have to visit. But to understand her, and to understand my reaction, we have to look into that abyss. This was the ultimate revelation, the moment that peeled back all the layers and exposed the raw, painful core of her situation. It was a moment of shocking vulnerability, a moment that would force a powerful transformation in how I saw the world. And the quiet battles people are fighting all around us. The impact of her words in that cab was seismic. The journey from this point forward would be entirely different. I was no longer just a driver. I was a witness to a moment of profound human drama, the kind you only find in the forgotten corners of the world, on a dark and lonely highway. If you understand that some offers have nothing to do with what's being said, but everything to do with what's being felt, type "I understand the offer" in the comments. Because my response to her was going to define the rest of our time together. Because my response to her was going to define the rest of our time together. The air in the cab suddenly felt 20 degrees colder. My blood ran cold. In that one second, my mind, conditioned by years of caution and a healthy dose of cynicism from the road, jumped to the worst possible conclusion about what she was offering. The silence stretched on, filled with the weight of her desperation and my own shock. I could have gotten angry. I could have felt insulted. My first, most primal instinct was to slam on the brakes, tell her to get out, and leave her right back, where I found her on that dark stretch of asphalt. That would have been the easy thing to do, the self-protective thing to do. Many drivers would have, and you couldn't necessarily blame them. But then I looked at her, really looked at her, past the shocking words, past the fear and the suspicion. I saw the tremor in her hands. I saw the tracks of tears that had long since dried on her cheeks. I saw a human being who had been pushed so far past her breaking point that she was offering the only thing she felt she had left of any value. It was a heartbreaking moment of revelation. This wasn't a proposition. It was a surrender, a white flag from a soul that had lost its war. And in that instant, a profound shift happened in my mindset. This was no longer about my safety or about breaking a rule. This moment was a test of my own humanity. All my years on the road, all the lonely miles, all the introspection, it all led to this one single decision. What kind of man was I going to be right now, in this cab, with this broken person? I took a slow, deep breath to steady myself. I turned to her, making sure my voice was as gentle as I could make it. I looked her straight in the eye, and I said, "Ma'am, a safe ride is not something you ever have to pay for. Not with money, and certainly not with anything else. Your safety is all the payment I need. You don't owe me anything. We're just going to get you somewhere safe." The impact of those words was immediate and overwhelming. It was like a dam inside her that had been holding back an ocean of pain finally burst. She didn't just cry. She sobbed. A deep, gut-wrenching sound of pure, unadulterated release. All the tension, all the fear, all the shame she had been holding onto just poured out of her. She covered her face with her hands and just let it all go. I didn't say anything else. I just kept my eyes on the road and gave her the space and the silence to let it out. I just let the steady rumble of the engine be a comforting presence. In that moment, the journey underwent a complete transformation. We were no longer a trucker and a stranger. We were two people in the middle of the night, sharing a moment of profound, raw humanity. Now, I want to go even deeper on this subject, because what I learned in that moment is a truth that I've carried with me ever since. We see people, we make snap judgments based on a single action, a single sentence, without ever knowing the journey that brought them to that point. We never see the bastidors, the hidden truth of their struggles. Her shocking offer was not a reflection of her character. It was a reflection of her circumstances. It was the last resort of a desperate mind. And my decision to respond with compassion instead of judgment literally changed the course of her life and mine. This is the part of the story where the real revelations began. Because once the tears subsided, once she felt safe, the full story of why she was on that highway in the middle of the night, with nothing but a small bag and a broken heart, started to come out. And the truth was far more terrifying than any of the scenarios my mind had invented. The reality of what she was running from was the kind of darkness you pray never touches your own life or the lives of anyone you love. We often think the biggest dangers on the road are other drivers or a blown tire. But sometimes, the most dangerous thing is the life a person is trying to leave behind in their rearview mirror. If you believe a moment of compassion can genuinely change the direction of someone's life, just write "compassion is the way" in the comments. Because her story was about to prove just how powerful that simple idea truly is. Because her story was about to prove just how powerful that simple idea truly is. After the storm of tears passed, a different kind of silence settled in the cab. It wasn't tense or awkward anymore. It was calm. It was safe. I just kept driving, giving her the quiet space she needed. I turned on the radio, very low, to a station playing old classic rock, just to have a bit of background noise. After a while, maybe 30 or 40 miles down the road, she spoke again. Her voice was quiet, hoarse from crying, but it was steady. "My name is Sarah," she said. I told her my name was Frank, and just like that, we weren't strangers anymore. We were Sarah and Frank, two people in a truck, driving east through the night. And then, slowly, piece by piece, the story came out. It wasn't a rush of information, but a careful unfolding, as if she was testing the air with each new detail, making sure it was safe to continue. She started by telling me she had left a small town a few hundred miles back. She had been there her whole life. She told me she was running away, not from the law, not from some mistake she had made, but from a life that was slowly and systematically destroying her. She was fleeing a relationship, a man who had chipped away at her soul for years, until she didn't recognize herself anymore. She spoke of a home that wasn't a sanctuary, but a cage. A place where every day was a negotiation with fear. The decision to leave hadn't been a single event, but the culmination of 1,000 small cuts. A final realization that if she didn't get out now, she might never get out at all. Her journey hadn't started on the side of that highway. It had started weeks earlier with a secret plan, a slow and painful mental transformation from victim to survivor. She had been saving what little money she could, hiding it away, planning her escape, but he had found the money. And that night, things had escalated to a point where she knew her life was in immediate danger. So she did the only thing she could. She waited for him to fall asleep, grabbed her purse with her ID and a few personal items, and she just ran. She ran out the door, down the street, and she just kept walking until she hit the highway. She had no destination, no plan, just a desperate, primal need to put miles between her and that life. The hidden truth of her situation was a nightmare. This wasn't just a woman needing a ride. This was a refugee fleeing a war zone that no one else could see. Now I want to go even deeper into this, because listening to her story provided a series of profound revelations. As a trucker, I'm a professional observer of the world. I see things from my high perch that others miss. But I usually see the outside of people's lives. The cars they drive, the towns they live in. In those hours, I was given a rare, unfiltered look at the bastidors, the private reality behind a closed door in town I'd probably driven through 100 times without a second thought. It was a powerful reminder that you never truly know the battles people are fighting. The impact of her confession was profound. It reframed everything. Her standing on the road, her lack of money, even her desperate, shocking offer. It all snapped into focus. It wasn't a sign of flawed character. It was a testament to her will to survive. She was willing to do anything, to sacrifice her last shred of dignity for a chance at freedom. Her mindset was not one of giving up, but of doing whatever it took to start over. It was the ultimate act of courage, born from the deepest pit of despair. We drove for hours and she talked. I mostly just listened, offering a quiet word of encouragement here and there. The cab of my truck, a place that was usually a symbol of my own loneliness, had transformed into a sanctuary, a moving confessional, a safe space where she could finally voice the truth without fear of judgment or reprisal. The further we drove, the more the fear seemed to peel away from her, replaced by a glimmer of something I hadn't seen in her eyes before. Hope. If you believe that everyone has a hidden story we know nothing about, just type "everyone has a story" in the comments. It's a truth I think we all need to remember. And her story was far from over. And her story was far from over. As the first hints of dawn began to soften the edges of the dark sky, we crossed the state line into Utah. We had been driving for hours, and the atmosphere in the cab had undergone a complete metamorphosis. The fear and tension were gone, replaced by a quiet companionship. We talked about everything and nothing. She asked me about my life on the road, about my family. I showed her the pictures on my dashboard, and for the first time that night, I saw a genuine smile on her face. It was a small thing, but it felt like a monumental victory. It was proof that the woman who had been so broken just a few hours ago was still in there. We shared a bag of chips I had in the cab and drank coffee from my thermos. In a strange way, it felt less like a rescue and more like a road trip with an old friend. We talked about dreams. She told me about the things she had wanted to do before her life had taken its dark turn. She loved to write. She used to write poems and short stories, but she had stopped years ago. She said the words just wouldn't come anymore. I told her that sometimes you just need a change of scenery to find the words again. The miles kept rolling by, and with each one, I could see a subtle shift in her. The hunted look in her eyes was slowly being replaced by a look of determination. The journey was having a powerful impact on her. A visible transformation was taking place right there in my passenger seat. She was starting to think about the future, not just as an escape, but as a blank page, an opportunity. It was an incredible thing to witness. Now I want to go even deeper, because this part of the journey holds a critical lesson about healing and human connection. It wasn't about me giving her advice or trying to solve her problems. My only role was to listen, to provide a safe, non-judgmental space for her to process her own story. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is just to be a witness to their pain, to let them know they're seen and heard. This is a hidden truth about recovery. The first step isn't always a grand action. Sometimes it's just a quiet conversation in the cab of a truck in the middle of the night. It's the simple act of one human being showing up for another, This was the real work of our journey together, the ambassadors of her healing process. The decision to talk, to share her burden, was her first step towards a new life. And I had the incredible privilege of being there for it. As the sun fully rose, casting long shadows across the landscape, we approached Salt Lake City. I knew I had to make a delivery there, but my priority was her. We decided that a bus station was her best bet. It would give her anonymity and a way to continue her journey east to a state where an old friend from high school lived, someone she thought she could trust. As we pulled into the city, the reality of our parting began to set in. Our shared journey in this moving sanctuary was coming to an end. Before I dropped her off, I pulled into the parking lot of a quiet diner. I told her we both needed a real breakfast. We sat in a booth, and it was the most normal thing in the world. We were just two people, Frank and Sarah, sharing a meal. But we both knew the profound significance of that moment. It was the first meal of her new life. The first decision she made as a free woman. The impact of that simple breakfast was immense. It was a quiet celebration of her courage. When the bill came, I paid for it before she could protest. But the question of payment, of her offer, still hung in the air, unspoken. I was about to find out that the true payment, the real revelation of what she had to offer, was yet to come. It was something more valuable than I could have ever imagined. If you believe that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is just listen, right? Just listen in the comments. It's a simple act with a powerful impact. And what she revealed next was the culmination of it all. And what she revealed next was the culmination of it all. After we finished breakfast, we drove the last few blocks to the Greyhound station. The morning sun was bright, making the world seem new and full of possibility. I pulled the truck into a spot where I could wait, and we both just sat there for a moment, the engine rumbling quietly. The journey was over. I reached into my wallet and pulled out what cash I had on me, a couple $100. I told her it was for her ticket and to have something in her pocket until she got to her friend's place. She immediately shook her head and started to refuse, saying I had already done too much, but I insisted. I told her to think of it not as a gift, but as an investment in her new beginning. She finally took it, her eyes welling up with tears again, but this time they were different tears. They were tears of gratitude, not despair. Then she looked at me with a seriousness that cut right through me. "Frank," she said, "you refused my offer last night, but I can't leave without giving you something. You have to let me." Before I could protest, she reached down into that small, worn-out bag she had been clutching all night, the one she had run from her old life with. I had no idea what to expect. Maybe a small piece of jewelry she had managed to save. Something she could have pawned. But what she pulled out was not what I expected at all. It was a small, leather-bound notebook. It was old and worn, the edges frayed from use. It looked like something deeply personal. She held it in her hands like it was the most precious object in the world. "I told you I used to write," she said, her voice soft. "I haven't written anything in years. But last night, while you were driving and I was just watching the road, the words started to come back." She opened the notebook to a fresh page where I could see new, hurried handwriting, so different from the faded ink on the other pages. "I don't have a beautiful voice," she said with a small, self-conscious smile, "and I don't have a guitar. But this is my song. No one in the world has ever heard it. I wrote it for you, for this ride, for this moment. This is my payment. Please, just let me give you this. Now I want to go even deeper, because this was the ultimate revelation. This was the hidden truth of what she had to offer. It wasn't her body. It wasn't a material possession. It was her art. It was her soul. It was the first creative act of her new, free life. It was a piece of her personal transformation, captured. On paper, in the safety of my truck. In that moment, I understood everything. Her offer from the night before, born of desperation, had been replaced by this offer, born of gratitude and rebirth. The impact of this gesture was more profound than any amount of money. It was a sacred exchange, a sharing of the one thing that was uniquely hers. The mindset of a true artist, to create beauty out of pain, was right there in front of me. And so, in the cab of my Peterbilt truck, parked at a bus station in Salt Lake City, Sarah cleared her throat and she sang. Her voice wasn't weak at all. It was clear and strong, filled with all the pain of her past and all the hope for her future. It was a song about leaving the darkness behind, about driving east toward the rising sun. It was a song about a broken wing learning to fly again. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. The bastidors of her soul were laid bare in that song, a raw, honest, and powerful melody. It was a gift of immense value, a secret shared only between the two of us. It was a moment suspended in time, a perfect and poignant end to our shared journey. That song was the real payment. It was a treasure I would carry with me for the rest of my days. If you believe that our creativity, our art, is the truest part of ourselves, write "Art is Soul" in the comments. It's a powerful truth to acknowledge. Her song was proof that even in the darkest of nights, the human spirit can create light. Her song was proof that even in the darkest of nights, the human spirit can create light. When she finished, there were tears in my eyes. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and told her it was beautiful, because it was. There are no other words for it. She carefully tore the page from her notebook and handed it to me. "So you don't forget," she said. I folded it carefully and put it in my shirt pocket, right next to my heart. We said our goodbyes. I watched her walk into that bus station, her back a little straighter, her step a little more confident than when I had found her. She gave one last look back and a small wave, and then she was gone. On her way to the next chapter of her life, I sat in my truck for a long time after she left, the echo of her song still hanging in the air. I looked at the empty passenger seat, and it didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt sacred. That spot had been a witness to a remarkable human transformation. I finally put the truck in gear and pulled out of the parking lot, back onto the highway. But the road felt different. I felt different. The whole world looked brighter, more vibrant. That one night, that one decision to break a rule had a profound impact on me. It was a powerful lesson from the University of the Road, the kind you can't learn in any book. I learned that true wealth has nothing to do with the money in your wallet. Real wealth is courage. Real wealth is the strength to start over when you have nothing. Real wealth is a song sung in the cab of a truck at sunrise. That night, I thought I was the one doing the saving. I thought I was the one giving something, a safe ride, a little cash. But the truth, the hidden truth of our exchange, was that she gave me far more than I ever gave her. She gave me a gift of perspective. She reminded me of the resilience of the human spirit, of the importance of compassion, and of the simple, profound power of a single act of kindness on a dark road. That piece of paper with her song on it is still one of my most prized possessions. I keep it in my logbook, and every now and then, on a particularly long and lonely night, I'll pull it out and read the words. It's a constant reminder of Sarah, and of the night my journey intersected with hers. Now I want to go even deeper, because this story isn't just about me and her. It's about all of us. The road of life is full of unexpected encounters and hidden stories. We are all on our own journey, carrying our own secret burdens and our own private songs. We all have moments where we are tested, where we have the chance to be a frank, and we are in desperate need of one. The bastidors of our lives are complex and messy, but they are also filled with opportunities for grace and connection. This entire experience reinforced a fundamental shift in my mindset. It's easy to become jaded in this world, to build walls and follow the rules to protect yourself. But sometimes the most important decisions, the ones with the biggest impact, require you to be brave enough to open the door. The revelations from that night continue to unfold for me, even now. It was a lesson in what it means to be truly human, in all our brokenness and all our beauty. This journey taught me that we are all just a few bad turns away from being the person on the side of the road. And we are all just one good decision away from being the one who stops. The choice is always ours. That night was a stark reminder that the most valuable cargo I'll ever carry isn't in the back of my trailer. It's the stories and the souls I meet along the way. That's the real treasure you find out here. If you believe that the most important journeys are the ones that change your perspective, write "It's all about perspective" in the comments below, because that's the ultimate destination of every story. But my encounter with Sarah, that wasn't about a framework or a guide. It was about a simple human connection. And that connection, that's really what this is all about. Not just out on the road, but right here as well. The fact that you stayed with me for this entire story, that's a connection in itself. And I truly appreciate you for it. If this story moved you or made you think, hitting that like button is the simplest way to let me know we connected on this journey today. And for those of you who rode along until the very end, I'd be honored if you'd just let me know by writing "I was on that journey too" in the comments below. It's just a small way of letting me know who the real road crew is, the ones who see the whole story through. If these are the kinds of stories that matter to you, the ones about real life choices and the heart of the highway, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. That way, you'll always have a seat in the cab for every new journey we take together. The road keeps going, and so do the stories. I've got another video queued up right here on the screen that I think you'll appreciate. If you're not ready for the ride to be over, just click on that one and we'll keep this rig rolling. Until next time, stay safe out there.